Where are you?
Right.
Hang on. That always happens. There you go. Even Statto.
Ethan.
Or should I say, is that Harry? Is that Harry Dean Stanton?
Oh, it sure is.
Right. Brilliant. It's as if he's here in the room.
It's true. Oh man, another episode I'm excited for.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
Alien. Now,
yeah.
Did you see these films in order? Because I know you have a tendency to see.
I saw them in 2, 1, 3, 4. So the second one was the first one I saw, like on TV late at night. And then obviously, the theatricals, because the special editions hadn't been released yet.
Right.
And then the fourth one, we rented it from the video store pretty much as soon as it came out. Because I think I was like early teens or so when that thing came out and stuff. But yeah, it's mostly in order for this one because as a little kid, it's a monster. When you're not thinking about all the connotations that Ridley Scott had for it and everything like that, it was just a monster.
Yep.
And I love monsters, so I was a fan of this one going way back, since I was knee high to a duck.
Yeah, well, I saw them in order. It's good that you started with 2 though, and not one of the lesser ones.
I think if you're going to show it to people that aren't necessarily horror fans, 2 is the best one to start with, and if they like it, the first one will act as a heck of a good prequel. But if it's a straight sci-fi fan, by all means, start from number 1.
Well, I saw it in sequence. I loved number 1.
Mm-hmm.
This one that we're talking about here, and it introduced me to all kinds of cool stuff, as it did to most of the world. Like H.R. Giger, for instance, his artwork introduced you to that. And there's so much about this, because I remember reading about it in the magazines at the time, and I managed to. There was a making of book that came out, and as you can see here, there was a graphic novel, Alien, the illustrated story that Archie Goodwin wrote, and that Walt Simonson did the artwork for. And it's brilliant. It's been reprinted a few times. Get a copy if you can.
Is this a graphic novel?
It's a graphic novel. It's really good. But I got this too. I think it was just the news agents. It wasn't even this was released in bookstores. Yeah, this Pete saying he wasn't allowed to see Alien back in '79. Mum and Dad bought me the large format photo novel. It was absolutely awesome. I had to wait for the VHS to enjoy the movie. I never saw it in the cinema either. I had to see it on VHS too.
I haven't seen any of them in the theater.
Oh, really?
No, not even the the Prometheus, because the trailers just didn't look right, and I was suspicious, and I was absolutely correct, at least from my point. From my, I still haven't seen Prometheus, and I watched Covenant, and because everyone said, oh, it's gonna answer a lot of questions for Prometheus, and so I figured, okay, maybe I'll watch this and then go back and watch the other one, but I didn't. I thought they got it wrong again.
Yeah, that's a whole other show, guys.
That's a whole other show.
That'll be a long show.
I think actually that's about all I'd have to say about it.
Aliens scared me as well. Aliens a properly scary movie.
I don't think
really
Aliens scared me.
I
don't remember it ever scaring me. When I was a kid, my grandmother and my dad, they were big horror fans. So I was literally watching these movies since infancy. So by the time I was old enough to find anything was supposed to be scary, this was just like regular stuff for me. It's kind of like that same sort of idea of you touch a puppy's feet and teeth and stuff like that so you can get to them when they're older and they don't mind because they just think that's how it's supposed to be. I was never really scared. Watching Nightmare on Elm Street by age 3 and 4, it never really occurred to me that it was supposed to be scary. I just saw monsters.
I think you're right. When you're dead young, they're not. It's just later on it begins to register. These movies are kind of like.
And I was always aware of the behind the scenes stuff too. It wasn't necessarily Freddy so much as it was, that's the guy in the makeup. Didn't really know Robert Englund at the time, but I was aware of all of that. So I just really liked the story of it, and this was just a cool action movie. The second one, the first one was, it's just like what's going to happen next. They kept you on a constant state of watching the TV after about the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think the first one is proper scary, especially if you get to see it in the cinema.
Oh yeah,
it's one of these movies because I saw it first in VHS and I thought it was proper scary then, and then afterwards it was like, well, you tape it and you sit and you pause when the adverts start and then you start taping again. And then you watch it over and over. But the first time I saw it in the cinema was when it was a re-release of a new print with Aliens as a double bill, like the best double bill ever.
Oh, wow.
And the sound in Alien is the one thing I didn't quite register because I've been watching it on TV.
Right.
Sound design is amazing.
Yeah,
That's what makes it scary. It's got a certain ethereal quality to it that makes it really quite creepy and scary. It reminded me of The Exorcist and the way they use sound and that, sound and silence, and the way they use together.
A lot of old movies did that trick, like The Haunting.
Yeah, exactly. It's been lost a little bit in modern movies.
Yeah, they got those low tones now.
Yeah, and then they just hit you with a big sound to make you jump.
Or it drops off for a second. You're going, oh, it's kind of quiet. Ah!
Yeah. Yeah, I hate that. It is, in my head, it's more like a horror movie than a science fiction movie.
Oh, a straight haunted house flick.
Yeah, everybody talks about it as if it's science fiction. But it's just a haunted house movie.
Well, it's a backdrop, just like in Rocky. Like the boxing is the backdrop for a drama.
Yeah.
This is the science fiction is the backdrop for a haunted house, basically.
Yeah, I mean the background to this is like it was Dan O'Bannon and is it Ron Suchet that did the original script?
That sounds right.
And Dan O'Bannon had written Dark Star for John Carpenter,
right?
And he was disappointed the first time he saw Dark Star in the cinema. Nobody laughed at it because it was supposed to be a comedy, and nobody laughed. And what he ended up doing was he was wanting to try and formulate a script that was like Dark Star, but it was deadly serious and was like a horror movie. And that was the idea behind Alien. And between the two of them, they kind of worked at the same time on fleshing out Alien and Total Recall. They were working on both scripts at the same time. He
probably had to have watched like Planet of the Vampires. Was it Planet of the Vampires?
Definitely. Yeah. I think also It, Terror from Another World.
Yep, definitely. It.
Yeah. Which is Terror from Another World, isn't it? I think. It, anyway, whatever the subtitle is, definitely called It. It's almost like a straight remake of it, to be honest.
For sure.
But what's brilliant about this film is they got Ridley Scott involved. The whole visual sensibility with like on the ship and the feel and on the planet, it all comes from him understanding what the other artists working on the film were doing. So he was in tune with what Giger was doing. He was in tune with.
He chose Giger.
Yeah, well, I think it was Dan O'Bannon that showed him Giger.
Oh,
yeah, because he was working on Jodorowsky's Dune, which never got made, and that's the first time that he saw the Giger's work. So I think he was already kind of like wanting to use Giger.
Ridley Scott makes me laugh. Man goes to play tennis when his film set burns down. That's good leadership. I like that.
It's better than golf. That's it. That sends the wrong message.
It just, I guess, for me when I'd seen that for the Legion, or not Legion, but the Tim Curry one, the fairy tale, the one I'm talking about. Legend, yeah. The big forest set that they had burned all the ground, and he just went to play tennis. The producer comes up and he's just like, "Whoa, where's Ridley?" Oh, he's playing tennis. Oh gosh, actually, I guess he's got the right idea. Because not much you can do. The whole thing's burning down. You can't exactly stop it, so just go do something else while it gets handled. He seems to be a director that like, I don't know if it's because he was of his time, or what, because I don't know that he's had like a straight hit in a while now in today's day and age. Even going back to Alien, he didn't quite get it back.
I think it's because he's kind of like a craftsman. He's very good at bringing everything together, and I think
he makes pretty movies.
If all the other creatives that are working with him are bringing their A game too. But I also think he's not a particularly good ideas man to come up with concepts, and he thinks he is. So the movies he's made in the last decade or so, he's involved in their inception as well, and I think that's a weakness.
Just get yourself the best people and let them do their job.
Get the people that are good at that, And Prometheus, we'd have to start talking about Prometheus and Covenant for me to explain what I'm thinking here. But I think that in this case, he had a solid script, he had a solid idea. The production was already starting, as Peter's already mentioned there. Walter Hill was, they had good producers coming in and working on this movie.
Right, perfect storm.
Exactly, and it just all kind of came together. It was the right time as well in the late 70s for this kind of movie. It was building up in the way that horror had been building throughout the decade, and then Star Wars had come out as well. So people were used to space movies, horror movies. Like, let's combine them, go old school.
Good cast of semi-knowns too.
Yeah,
not exactly a huge. Well, Tom Skerritt, but I mean everybody else was just kind of.
Monkey was saying not many of the original cast are still with us.
No, we got
Stanton Cotto died quite recently, didn't he?
Yep. Ian Holm. Scarrett's still alive, I think, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
So's Weaver.
Yep. John Hurt's gone as well. Yeah. But it's an amazing cast. What's great about the cast is that the characters are written in a kind of shorthand way, but there's not a lot of character depth and background. But by casting interesting faces and interesting actors, they bring more character to those roles. It works as a good shorthand because you know they're going to get killed. It's a lot of movies.
That's all you need to know.
So you just kill them off one by one. But it's far more interesting than you get in most slasher movies because you get real kind of wee character quirks with these people.
But see, they did that way where and I'll probably end up comparing and contrasting a little bit between Prometheus and especially Alien Covenant more so, because that one really tried to go back to alien stuff. But this one where they were all sitting there eating dinner when they got up, and stuff like that. They had these very specific points that drove the character home in a short amount of time. They tried that in Covenant, and it kind of fell flat. Like, I don't know what it was. Like they just kind of all sat around. I know the captain had just kind of died. Spoiler alert, but it didn't really show anything about the character, so we really didn't have any reason to give a crap about him.
Well, I think structure's got a lot to do with that because this film is well structured. The cast they wake up from the suspended animation at the start, and we essentially wake up with them, and we're introduced to the alien in the world at the same pace that they are.
It has that advantage of nothing like this has come before. I mean, we're expecting a certain something when we see Covenant, we expected something from Prometheus as well. But this one, it's like, it's that whole thing of like why you like to see new properties and new things, because you just got no idea where it's coming from. If you see something older with like a under title under it, you're going to have a certain expectation going in. Yeah,
definitely. For instance, the things that it shows us that we've not really kind of seen before, things like the chest burster. The chest burster comes bursting out of John Hurt's
Stan
stomach.
Winston? I can't remember.
I think did he not come in with the second film? I think it was.
He was the second film. I wonder who the creature design was.
Was it Brian Johnson?
Carlo Rambaldi was the first one.
He was involved in the creation of the mechanism for the aliens' mouth worked and that kind of thing.
Yep.
It's a good kind of like shock jump scene, but also it's got a cathartic kind of I always have a wee laugh at the end of it as well. With the actual facehugger the actual kind of chest burster when it comes out and it just kind of sits there, it always reminds me of the scene in Fawlty Towers with the rat inside the biscuit tin.
Right.
So even though it's gory and shocking, it kind of my twisted mind at play. I think Alien is probably one of the best horror movies ever made. Yeah.
You think so?
I think so.
Above The Exorcist or below? Seeing as how that seems to be like the godfather of horror movies like this.
I think in retrospect probably above. Yeah, okay. as a complete movie. I think its effect on the zeitgeist as it were at the time. No, The Exorcist is the one that definitely did it. But I think as a complete movie, like it doesn't really miss a beat and it builds brilliantly. The Exorcist is kind of like two movies that are put together and they're both very good. Yeah, I think that with the passage of time, this film doesn't really age. It seems that the design in the movie makes it almost timeless.
Mm-hmm. Especially with like some of the restoration they've had. These movies look like they were shot yesterday.
Yeah, fantastic. And also love the idea that H.R. Giger was there on set, painting it and putting all the stuff together.
Creeping everybody out.
Yeah, because I mean, he was a fine artist, so it's like, why wouldn't he actually be there making it? In fact, I think he was angry that they filmed one scene before he'd actually finished painting the set properly. So he worked all night to make sure that never happened again.
Looking at him, he reminds me of Peter Lorre.
He does. He has that kind of like whole kind of quality about him. Brilliant artist.
I can see why they were creeped out, though. It's like, hi, Giger. Can you want to see my skulls?
Well, seemingly he kept the bones of his dead wife hanging in his living room.
He kept a lot of things.
Yeah.
He had a whole wall full of skulls, I think it is, at his place and stuff. He made Tim Burton look like a little kid.
So Not My Monkey says he prefers the original to the director's cut. Okay, so let's
That's
talk
what
about
I was
that.
just going to ask about that. Yeah.
What do you think?
It's tough to say because I think the original works better with the second movie's director's cut, but with the introduction of that other scene where the alien, like they basically melt into another egg.
Yeah,
it's really tough unless you're saying like if a alien is all by himself, then he can do that to preserve the species a little bit.
Yeah.
Which you could certainly make theories up about that. I don't have a preference between. I like both of them.
I like both. I think I prefer the original because the pacing's better.
Mm-hmm. That scene where Dallas, you see Dallas and Harry Dean Stanton's almost completely melted into an egg. That is a powerfully good scene.
It's a really good scene. Yeah,
really good, and it amps the horror a little bit because he's sitting there alive and melting.
I think it's one of these cases where the director's cut was a wee bit of a cash grab because it really doesn't need that scene in it. Yeah, I think I think it's if I was to watch the film tonight, I would probably just go with the original.
I think it's like a couple of minutes shorter actually than the theatrical.
It might well be, yeah.
Because he cut a bunch of stuff out, rearranged it, put that new scene, and called it good. Because he was like, "Well, the director's cut was the first one. I cut it together."
Yeah, so here's another one for you.
Yeah, this was just for the event, kind of like the fourth one, where they added like 10 minutes on at the end, a couple of tiny things, and then throughout the thing, and there wasn't much difference between the fourth one and director's cut.
Alien, does it stand up? I mean, this is a
movie
in 1978. How does it stand up today?
Of course it does, especially with the restorations and everything so clear, but it's not like you can see all the wires clear.
Yeah.
The blacks are nice and black, and the you don't see like the little strings on the models and things. It looks beautiful. They put a lot of love into it.
Yeah, I think I was saying, I've already said, it definitely stands up today.
I showed it to my wife not too long ago, like a few months ago, and she was like, I didn't think she'd like it because of the slow start, but she was like hypnotized through the whole thing. So that kind of says she's a fairly, normie type of movie watcher. Doesn't go too far in any direction, especially with horror, but she really liked this one. So
cool. Yeah.
Works on regular people too.
Yeah, I think the pacing, you say slow, but I think the pacing is just
deliberate.
It builds. It is deliberate, and it really works.
What I mean by that is like if you take somebody that's like, well, let's just say like a 17-year-old, and they're looking for either action right away, or how horror movies are, like there's always an opening before the credits and there's a big freaking scare to just get you all like rattled before the movie starts, and they're expecting that. This doesn't have that. It's about 40 minutes in before you see anything really crazy. So people that are looking for a good scary time or a lot of action, they're gonna be checking their watch for that first 40 minutes. I think.
I think that the minute that they get to the planet with the eggs and the face hugger, anybody who's it changes for everybody.
Oh yeah, people perk up then, but it's getting there for like a normie.
Yeah,
I think,
and on rewatches, it still works because that's coming, and so there's tension there. I went on the Alien experience when I was at college many years ago, and it was essentially, it became a big kind of like a theme park thing, but it originally started in a kind of big warehouse in Glasgow, and these guys had got the rights to Alien to put on an experience where they take groups through, and it was like about 20 minutes to half an hour, and you were being guided by Marines through this area, and you were facing aliens and all kinds of stuff. I got to kind of like see the actual, because they used the actual props and suits from the movies.
I expected you to say something like there was a guy in a giant like plushy face hugger outfit with a sign that said "free hugs."
No, it was actual ones that were used in the movies. And so you got to see them. They were turning on like strobe lights, and people were screaming and running, but you're trying to just stare at it and look at it. They look amazing.
Yeah,
and actually, when you actually see them, the fact that again, the first suit was H.R. Giger building it himself and practically building it around the actor.
And also, it's a testament, I think, to the design of the suit, given what these creatures are supposed to be, like big bugs, and how they're agile and how they jump and stuff. Not being able to really show that until later on. We got the decent aliens in all the worst movies, like AVP, where you can see them jumping, slashing with the tail, and all this being super deadly.
Yep.
It wasn't the greatest movie in the world, but then these movies, which are clearly inferior in terms of it's just a guy in a suit, they look so much better and have aged much better too. That's a true testament to the design.
I think so. But again, jumping, slashing, fighting aliens, they work in a kind of comic book kind of way, and especially in the comics. But it's much scarier the way that the aliens work in the first two movies. It just seems it's more organic, so it seems scarier. But yeah, that's Alien.